All right, folks, this is it. Your final day to save 40% on your new DailyWire Plus membership. DailyWirePlus.com. Use code DW40 to join now. Pride Month kicks off with a bang as a left-wing journalist retweets a video of himself doing extremely gross sex stuff with a male prostitute. That part is not surprising at all. That is pretty much par for the course, I think, for left-wing journalists. What is surprising is that a bunch of conservatives are defending him. Then Elon Musk officially leaves the White House, and I sit down with the extremely insightful and extremely conservative Prime Minister of Hungary. I'm Michael Knowles. This is the Michael Knowles Show. Welcome back to the show. I'm on the flight back from Budapest yesterday, and I see that Kanye West has released a new song, except it's not a new song. It's a new version of an old song, a recent song, but a song he'd already released called Heil Hitler. We talked about it on the show. A lot of people talked about Kanye's song Heil Hitler. And I had a slightly contrarian take on that song, you might recall. I said, look, the Kanye critics are going to deride this song, and the Nazis are going to love this song because they're both going to think that Kanye is exalting Hitler. But I don't think that's what he's doing here. I think Kanye is saying the Nazis are bad and he's become bad and that's why he's a Nazi. And I said, I think there's something deeper going on. And Kanye has totally vindicated me. I am the most vindicated rap music critic in the world right now. We will get to the new version of Kanye's song in one moment and why I hate to say I told you so. First, though, we got to talk about Birch Gold. Text Knowles, KNWLAS, to 989898. The Trump administration has its sleeves rolled up in streamlining monumental moves right now, but it is difficult for them to take your personal finances into account when trying to fix the country. You have to do that. That is why tens of thousands of Americans are buying gold now from Birch Gold. Here are the facts. In the past 12 months, the value of gold has increased by 30%. Central banks are buying gold in record quantities, and the real reset is on the horizon, where BRICS nations are looking to unseat the U.S. dollar as the global reserve. But you can find peace of mind in gold. Birch Gold makes it extremely easy to convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in physical gold, or just buy some to store at home. You know, I have a decent amount of gold in my portfolio. I'm a little bit of a gold bug, and I'm very happy, especially in recent years. Just text my name, Knowles, KNWLAS, to 989898. Birch Gold will send you a free info kit on gold. No obligation, only useful information. With an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau, thousands of happy customers. Protect your savings today. Text the word Knowles, KNWLAS, to 989898. Pride Month, man. I guess it's Pride Month. It's a little bit more of a subdued Pride Month this year. Because as I was flying back yesterday from Europe, I was getting ready to watch a Yankee game. I said, I got a long flight. I'm going to watch the Yankee game. I said, oh no, please don't tell me. Please don't. I know it's June 1st. Please don't tell me. I go to the Yankees, and sure enough, the Yankees post a little pride thing, and like every sports team posts a pride thing, and a lot of businesses post pride things, but not as many businesses as I was expecting. Hamilton, the Broadway show, obviously they posted a pride thing. This was Hamilton actually on the West End, posted a pride symbol, and it said, "Love doesn't discriminate." Hashtag Pride Month, hashtag HamFam, which of course doesn't make any sense. Love very much discriminates. If you love your wife, you do not love other women in the same way. If you love God, you don't love other gods. Love very much discriminates because if you love one thing, then you don't love that which is contrary to it. You know, it's like the law of non-contradiction. But the slogans about Pride Month are always like that. And I'm pleased to see that it's pretty subdued this year. Compared to any of the last 10 Pride Months, I think people have had enough of it. I think people are sick of Pride Month. I think we reached peak LGBT somewhere around 2019, and I think we've been declining ever since. And you know how much I hate to say I told you so. I did predict this would happen because the LGBT ideology reached its apotheosis with transgenderism, really with transing the kids. People found that the most repulsive, the most extreme version of LGBTism, and they said, we don't want this. And then there was a little bit of a movement among the more subdued sexual revolutionaries to say, okay, well, we need to just divorce the T from the LGB. We need to get transgenderism out of the broader LGBT movement. But I said that's not possible because transgenderism is just the logical conclusion of the LGBT movement, because the LGBT movement says there's really no difference between men and women. That's the logic for so-called gay marriage. That's the logic for the whole movement. I said, well, if that's true, then it naturally follows that a man effectively could be a woman. And if a man effectively could be a woman, then a kid, effectively a little boy, could become a little girl. And so just as ideas have their own momentum, starting with feminism, really, feminism saying men and women are basically the same. I said, just as that idea leads naturally to the gay rights movement, leads naturally to same-sex marriage, leads naturally to transgenderism, and then therefore transing the kids, so too, when you start to go in the other direction, you don't just stop. You don't just stop with the T. You keep going. And I predict that will keep going. I think there's a big backlash against the whole LGBT thing and the broader gender dysphoria that goes back many, many decades, and that includes feminism, which says that men and women are the same. I suspect next year's so-called Pride Month is going to be even more subdued, and that's a wonderful thing. Now, the Pride Month did begin with one particularly explosive scene. I've had the editors just pull one. I actually asked them to blur it. They didn't blur it enough, but I'm not going to play the video, but there's this left-wing journalist, Glenn Greenwald, and he's been around for a long time, and he retweeted a video of himself wearing a skirt, shirtless, with what appears to be some kind of Palestinian flag or something on his chest, and he was performing various eccentric actions that had at least a tangentially sexual nature to them. This is a family show, so we're not going to play the video. Obviously, we'll have the most wholesome screenshot that we can. Don't think you could really call it wholesome. What is this about? What is he doing here? So for those who don't know who Glenn Greenwald is, he began his career as a left-wing journalist, writing for places like Salon, very left-wing outlets. He was critical of the Republican administration. He participated in the Edward Snowden leaks from the NSA. He was involved with part of the Bradley Manning who became a transvestite and called himself Chelsea Manning. He was part of that affair. And so that all coded left-wing 15 years ago. Now, because Bush has fallen out of favor, plenty of people on the right actually kind of like Glenn Greenwald. But Glenn Greenwald is a left-wing guy. He is about as left-wing as it comes. He does sometimes criticize the libs, and he did kind of defend Trump from Russiagate, though he's attacking Trump now. But he's a man of the left. If you dress like that, and if you're gay married, as Glenn Greenwald was, and if you do gay adoption, like two fellas adopting kids, and you're pretty on the left. And so he not only had this video leak, he retweeted it. And then he unretweeted it. Then he blamed the leak on a political agenda. But what's weird here is the content that he retweeted and that he obviously participated in is about humiliation. The way he dresses, the way he behaved, the whole thing is about being humiliated. And so Ali Stuckey made a good point. She said, I'm wondering if he retweeted that on purpose because this is just part of his fetish or kink or something, that he likes to be humiliated, and maybe that was part of it too. I don't know. Here's what I do know. I would not have commented on this story if all he had done was film this video and maybe even post this video. I would not have commented on it. I am one of the few people in media, and including in conservative media, who have, up until this moment, never had even the slightest temptation to promote Glenn Greenwald. Some people on the right have promoted him. They thought, well, he's hitting this one enemy of mine right now, so I'm going to promote him. I always thought this guy, he and I do not share really any basic political principles. Our political philosophies are radically different. So even if some of our enemies overlap, I don't know, I don't really see a reason to promote him. And I wouldn't have promoted this leak if it were only the leak. Because I think, look, he's obviously a deeply troubled man we're all sinners. We all do. Maybe we don't all do that, but we all do bad stuff, and we don't want to engage in scandal and gossip and salacious rumor mongering or any of it. And we should encourage him to, get straight, as it were. we should encourage him to fix his life. The reason that this became a political story, and the reason that I do feel we have to comment on it, and the reason I think it is misguided for people on the right to defend the man, is the statement that he released. He posted this. He said, "Last night, videos were released online depicting behavior in my private life. Some were distorted and others were not." So he said, the videos are real. "They were published without my knowledge or consent, and its publication was therefore criminal." Maybe he's the one who, didn't he retweet it? "Though we do not yet know exactly who is responsible, we are close to knowing, and the motive was a maliciously political one." Yeah, was it? Your political enemies made you put a skirt on and do weird stuff and then film it and then retweet it? Okay, I don't know, maybe, whatever. As for the content of the videos, this is the key. This is the key here as to why we have to talk about this and why this is political. As for the content of the videos, I have no embarrassment or regret about them. The videos depict consenting adults engaged in intimate actions in their private lives. They all display fully consensual behavior, harming nobody. This is why I am totally vindicated in never having promoted this man ever. We will get to why in a moment. First, I want to tell you about ExpressVPN. I have to tell you about expressvpn.com/Knowles. Do you trust your internet service provider? You probably should not. Internet service providers often keep logs of your online activity for government requests, and in the US, they can even legally sell your browsing history to whomever they please. The solution is simple. Get a VPN to create a secure tunnel for your internet traffic, keeping your browsing private from your ISP and anyone else trying to snoop. ExpressVPN reroutes your online traffic through encrypted servers, keeping it away from your ISP, data brokers, and other third parties. Now, of course, you're transferring trust from your ISP to your VPN, so choosing the right one matters. That is why I trust ExpressVPN and have for many years at this point. Their transparency report shows they've received over 300 law enforcement data requests last year, yet none of them resulted in customer data being exposed. Zero. ExpressVPN cooperates with legitimate requests, but you can't hand over what you don't have. So their servers run on volatile memory, never saves anything to disk. There's no activity data to give up. Privacy by design. Super easy. Pull up your devices, one button, boom, you're done. Right now, if you want the VPN I trust to protect my online privacy, get ExpressVPN. In fact, you can get an extra 4 months of ExpressVPN for free with my link, expressvpn.com/Knowles, expressvpn.com/Knowles to get 4 extra months for free. As for the content of the videos, Glenn Greenwald writes, "I have no embarrassment or regret about them." Really? You have no embarrassment? I'm not saying people shouldn't feel sorry for him if this video was leaked without his approval. I'm not saying people shouldn't feel sorry for him that he's in such a way that he even films videos like this. One can have a great deal of pity for Glenn Greenwald. You don't have any embarrassment about? I think you do. You should. You certainly should have him. If you don't have embarrassment or regret about putting on a skirt and whatever else, what is it, a Palestine flag on his chest and doing all sorts of stuff that I'm not even going to describe on the show. Luckily, I haven't seen the video, but I did read about it on Twitter and I did see the screenshot. If you don't have embarrassment and regret about that, something is seriously wrong with you. In fact, this statement in which you defend that behavior and you defend it on the basis of a consent-only based morality, that demonstrates worse judgment than filming the video in the first place. Because this is what liberalism, lowercase l, always comes down to. In liberalism, it's not merely the highest moral maxim, it's actually the sole moral criterion that consenting adults can do whatever they want, which is based on a false understanding of consent. Because first of all, reportedly, the other guy in this video was a prostitute. And very often, prostitutes are not exactly consenting, even by the modern liberal definition of consent. Very often, they're coerced. Very often, they're trafficked. I'm not saying this guy is trafficked. I'm just saying that happens in the prostitution industry. But furthermore, the liberal conception of freedom, which I talk about on the show a lot, is a false conception of freedom. And actually, the Prime Minister of Hungary made this point very well when we were sitting down in Budapest. Freedom is not just neutrality in choosing, it's willing predicated on knowledge. And what that means is, if your will is twisted by vice and sin, you're not going to be totally free. You think Glenn Greenwald wants to do this stuff in a deep sense? No, he doesn't want to do this stuff. No more than a really fat guy wants to eat the 10th cupcake. Part of his lower appetite wants the 10th cupcake. Glenn Greenwald's lower appetite wants all this weird stuff. But his rational will, if he has one, and we all have one at least to some degree, doesn't want that because it is embarrassing and it does fill one with regret. The big fat guy doesn't really, at a higher level, doesn't want the 10th cupcake because he knows it's bad for him and it's going to make him sad. True freedom is willing predicated on knowledge. So if your will is twisted by vice, or if you're ignorant, you can't be truly free. So he has to defend this. And then this is the craziest part. He goes on and he says, he defends himself by attacking Trump. Do I have where's the, yes, here we go. Serious, thoughtful question. How have you been able to separate what you regard as Donald Trump's inspired and noble political leadership from the repeated behaviors in his private life, long considered deeply immoral and degenerate under the most widespread and longstanding? For some reason, this cuts off here. He's saying Trump was married multiple times and he's friends with Jeffrey Epstein and blah, 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 blah. He says, I know that I'm going to get caught doing something completely degenerate and humiliating. I'm then going to say it's not humiliating at all. I'm going to double down on the behavior. Then I'm going to bizarrely be defended by a bunch of prominent conservatives, and I won't even be able to take the undeserved win there. I'm going to start attacking Trump. I feel for the guy. We should pray for the guy. I hope he gets right. We could all use a little fixing and sanctifying and growth and virtue in our own lives. So it is a little bit there, but for the grace of God, go all of us. However, I feel vindicated in never having promoted him as the voice of conservative journalism and philosophy. And that statement, those multiple statements, they show worse judgment than the video. Okay, speaking of consenting adults, Elon Musk is leaving the White House. President Trump gave him a send-off. The first buddy, this richest man in the world who helped Trump win the election, campaigned with Trump, said he was going to lead DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency, to clean up the federal government, was one of the biggest figures of the first 100 days, really 130 days, because it was at that point that Elon Musk was limited by the law in being a temporary government employee. He's still running his businesses. He's not a full-time government employee. And so after that period was over, Elon had to leave the White House, and President Trump gave him a big send-off.
A little special something we have here.
Thank you.
A very special that I give to very special people. I have given it to some, but it goes to very special people, and I thought I'd give it to Elon as a presentation from our country.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elon.
Thank you.
Take care of yourself.
Thank you. You see the luck. The luck of this is amazing.
A large luck.
It's a big key to the White House. So it's a nice send-off. People are reporting on this as though Musk is being fired. This is the liberal media. Musk is being fired. He's not being fired. We want to talk about saying I told you so. Everyone has known from the beginning that Musk was going to have to leave at about 130 days. And he'll maybe still be around. He'll still be helping to advise things, but he can't, unless he were to give up his businesses, which he's obviously not going to do, he cannot stick around longer than that. People have been saying, oh, there's rivalry between the two men, all this salacious reporting on screaming matches and all the rest of it. And Trump, I think, gave Elon this big send-off with the key to the White House to as a middle finger to the media. To say, no, this isn't true. You're not going to drive a wedge between the two of us. He came in, he did his job, and he's great. We love Elon. We like him so much. We're giving him a key to the White House. The media have been desperate to drive a wedge between the two men. The reason the media are so desperate to drive a wedge between the two men is because only the Democrats are supposed to have the billionaires. Only the Democrats certainly are supposed to have the Silicon Valley billionaires, the big tech billionaires. It was really problematic for the Dems that Elon Musk came and helped Trump. Elon Musk helped Trump win the election. They can't tolerate that. Elon is cool. Even if you hate Elon, he's pretty cool. He's weird. He's eccentric. He wants to go to Mars. He's one of the most interesting people in the world. Those guys are supposed to vote for Democrats, not for Republicans, certainly not for Trump. It was a big problem. So they're always trying to drive a wedge. Trump here signaling at the end, he's not going to let them have it. Musk, the same thing. They're just not going to let the media have it, despite the constant negative press. Covfefe. Other huge news that happened yesterday. Ukraine obliterated Russia with facts and logic and drones. I've been pretty clear-eyed on the whole Ukraine war. I've not exactly been waving the blue and yellow flag, Slava Ukraini. Oh, Zelensky's the greatest hero since Winston Churchill. That ain't me. That ain't my take on the war. And I have consistently urged restraint and peace in that war. But you gotta give them their due in Ukraine. Ukraine carried out an amazing military operation yesterday, destroyed 41 Russian aircraft in a drone attack inside Russia. Something like a third of the Russian fleet that can really inflict serious damage. This was 2,670 miles beyond the Ukraine front line. So you're talking deep into Russia. This is at the Balaya Air Base. The operation was called Operation Spider's Web. And that's all the good side. You got a good job on Zelensky, very impressive. Probably good job on the United States, which is really the serious power in this war against Russia. But what this does risk is seriously escalating the war. Now, we're on the brink of potentially a peace deal with the Russians. When I was chatting with a lot of great European conservatives from all over, from Italy, from Spain, from Brussels, obviously from Hungary, when I was in Budapest, it became quite clear. In fact, the Prime Minister of Hungary made this point. The only two powers that can resolve the Ukraine war are the United States and Russia. It's not Ukraine and Russia. It doesn't matter if Ukraine and Russia sign a deal. America is the superpower backing Ukraine. So the deal can only come from the US and Russia. If this latest attack from the Ukrainian side puts the Russians on their back feet and helps to bring about a more favorable deal for the West, great, that's really good. But what this attack shows is something I've been warning about the whole time in the Ukraine war, which is the neocons and the libs and the globalists have been saying that the war in Ukraine basically has no cost whatsoever. Their argument is the war in Ukraine is a great military investment because we give them a little bit of money. We don't have to send them soldiers necessarily. We don't need to have boots on the ground necessarily. We just give them a lot of money and we turn Ukraine into a meat grinder and we get to kill off an entire generation of Russian men. And we'll also have to kill off an entire generation of Ukrainian men, but at least it's not American men, and it's a small price to pay to degrade the Russian military. That is the argument made by the neocons, the libs, and the globalists. Okay, and you can it's a gruesome calculation, it's a cold calculation, but you can understand it. The thing that those people are missing is wars don't just remain static. It's not as though you can have this meat grinder go on forever and not risk any downside. The downside is today and always has been that regional war between, one nuclear former superpower and ostensibly Ukraine, really it's between two nuclear powers because it's really between the United States and Russia. The risk is that tiny little meat grinder becomes a major regional war and becomes a global conflict and potentially a nuclear conflict, as has been threatened multiple times. That's the risk, and that's the risk you're seeing here. So good job to Ukraine. That's great. I hope it helps us get a decent peace deal. But really, the way this news story is going to be played off in the liberal press is this shows that the Ukraine skeptics were wrong and the Ukraine hawks were right. Au contraire, mes frères, this actually vindicates the Ukraine skeptics as well. It vindicates the Ukraine hawks because it says, look, they can really fight back. Look at this amazing operation they pulled off where they drove a bunch of little sheds into Russia and then the roofs came off and the drones came out and they blew up all these planes. That's very impressive. But it also vindicates the Ukraine skeptics because this war is escalating in real time as we're getting a lot of saber rattling from Iran and Israel over the Iranian nuclear program. As we're getting a major terror attack in Boulder, Colorado over the Israel-Gaza conflict, which we'll get to in 1 second. First, I want to tell you about Policy Genius. I remember when I had my first kid and I realized, oh, wait a second. It now matters if I live or die. Even earlier, when you get married, when you start to like have adult relationships, you can just say like, well, hold on. It doesn't just affect me if I live or die. It affects a lot of people around me. That's where Policy Genius comes in. Policy Genius simplifies life insurance shopping with quotes from top insurers, helping you find affordable coverage that can fit your needs and budget, all while giving your loved ones a financial safety net to handle debts, expenses like the mortgage, or even build wealth over time if the worst were to happen to you. With Policy Genius, you can find life insurance policies starting at just $276 a year for $1 million in coverage. Super easy way to protect the people you love and feel good about the future. Policy Genius lets you compare quotes from America's top insurers side by side for free. You've got their licensed support team handling questions, paperwork, advocating for you. It's really, really great. Secure your family's financial future with Policy Genius. Head over to policygenius.com/Knowles to compare a free life insurance quote from top companies and see how much you could save. That is policygenius.com/Knowles. Folks, three-fingered mummies, alien abductions, giants, all sorts of things that I mostly think are not real, but at the very least they're interesting. In this episode of Michael and the Rogue Archaeologist, Part 2, I continue my conversation with explorer and author Timothy Alberino. After our previous episode was left on a cliffhanger, we discuss his most recent expedition to Peru, testimonies of self-purported alien abductees, and the potentially Nephilim-like remains of giants. We get into it all in this episode. Check out this quick teaser.
I had this intuition. There's something under that pyramid in Peru. These three-fingered tridactyl beings, the largest, most bizarre elongated skulls. Let me tell you the most compelling thing, though. 2 of the mummies are pregnant. Maybe there is a crypto-terrestrial, non-human race, species, inhabiting planet Earth, probably subterranean.
It sounds crazy.
It sounds absolutely crazy. Even according to the Smithsonian's own records, there were the remains of people of unusually large stature were discovered.
What does it mean for us? What does it mean for everything from our human nature to salvation history if that actually happened?
Well, those are the essential questions.
Watch a full episode now at the Michael Knowles YouTube channel. For the full, uncensored, ad-free version, you go to DailyWire Plus. Major terror attack in Boulder, Colorado. The FBI has charged a 45-year-old man. His name is Mohammed, you'll be shocked to hear. He seems to have had some kind of flamethrower and was setting Israel supporters on fire in Boulder, Colorado. And it wasn't even a young kid. This guy's 45 years old, and his victims were older. 6 people between the ages of 67 and 88 were injured by this guy attempting to, and in some cases successfully, setting them on fire. They were taken to the hospital. And what was Mr. Mohammed screaming while this was taking place? According to the FBI, he was screaming, "Free Palestine." Checks out. It is always, almost always, the ones you most expect. Apparently, he was also yelling, "How many children have you killed? We have to end the Zionists, and they are killers." This is the Free Palestine movement. I know that some people on the right, a little more fringy, but some people on the right have flirted with the Free Palestine movement because they've been taken in by the propaganda of a movement that is essentially leftist and liberationist down to its core, liberal truly down to its very core. I know they've been taken in by this, just as people on the right have been taken in by all sorts of left-wing activist campaigns throughout history. This always happens, whether we're talking about geopolitical events, I don't know, in Africa or Asia, or whether we're talking domestic issues like the LGBT movement, or like, I don't know, any of the other ones, the free speech movement or whatever. They sometimes right-wingers get taken in by this. And I just, as I've pointed out on the show, and I pointed it out as recently as last week, this is not our movement. These are not our people. The Free Palestine movement is made up of Greta Thunberg. Okay, the Free Palestine movement is made up of Hollywood lunatics and the establishment media largely, and Islamists named Muhammad. And weirdly enough, the Islamists are probably the most reasonable people among them. And that's not a good sign for a movement. Furthermore, even take the immediate substance of Palestine and, the Middle East out of it. This whole notion of free such and such, these kind of movements, march into the street, we will be free, liberate us, whatever. They're always left-wing. That kind of language, that kind of rhetoric, the anti-colonial, anti-imperial, free yourself from the constraints of tradition and nation and empire, all that stuff. That's for the libs, okay? This is not our movement. So before, I guess this is the thread on the show today, is just associating with people. And, you're known by the friends you keep. So you got to make sure you're not making a misstep. You're not being lured in by the temptation of seeing someone attack a group that you want to attack, that you're not lured into making a political alliance that is ultimately incoherent. There is no coherent alliance between normal people and the Greta Thunberg, Hollywood elites, Mohammed shrieking while he lights people on fire. It's not going to work in the long run. And you're going to be embarrassed and you're going to be filled with regret. Even if you deny it in your subsequent statements, you're going to be embarrassed and filled with regret if you associate with those people. It's intrinsically radical and liberal. They ain't our kind of people. They ain't my kind of people, I'll tell you that. Okay, now, speaking of anti-Semitism, I guess, and claims of anti-Semitism, I feel so vindicated. Boy, oh boy. And I was thinking this on the airplane yesterday because someone pointed out that Kanye West has released a new version of his song, Heil Hitler. And I talked about the song Heil Hitler on the show. I think my show is probably one of the few places left on YouTube you can still hear a clip of Heil Hitler because it was taken off all the platforms. And I said, hey, you guys are misunderstanding it. I said, there are people who are pro-Nazi, and they love this song because they think that Kanye West is saying the Nazis are good. And then there are people who are criticizing Kanye because they're an anti-Nazi, and they think Kanye West is saying the Nazis are good. And I said, I think both of these groups are misunderstanding what Kanye is saying because they're not listening to his words. Kanye West, in the song, he says, these people took my kids from me, and my bank accounts, and I've lost everything, and I'm filled with wrath, and I don't know what to do with it. And I'm addicted to drugs, and I'm doing weird sex stuff, and I'm just so out of my mind. I'm being so unreasonable that I'm becoming a villain. I'm becoming evil, and so therefore I'm a Nazi, therefore Heil Hitler. Which means the original song, and like no one got this, but the original song, if you just listen to the lyrics, you don't need a PhD in music criticism. You can just listen to what he's saying plainly. He's saying the Nazis are bad, and I'm bad, and therefore I'm a Nazi. And so the obvious, even down to the black men who are in the song, who are in the music video, they're wearing animal skins and animal heads, as if to say, I'm surrendering my rational will and my intellect, and I'm just becoming a base animal. I'm degrading my humanity, and this kind of guttural grunt, Heil Hitler. And so the obvious question at the end of the song is, how do you get back? If you've reached rock bottom, how do you get back? Which way, Western man, are you going to further degrade yourself, make yourself further an animal, lower yourself to a kind of paganism or worse, and become a Nazi? Will to power, forget about your intellect, forget about morality, forget about reason, forget about the good. Are you going to become a Nazi? Or are you going to not be a villain? Can you be a good guy again? How can you be a good guy again and go up and worship God? And there was a sign that I was right about this from about a week ago when Kanye West tweeted out, he said, look, I'm done. He goes, I'm done with anti-Semitism. I forgive everyone who's hurt me. I'm sorry for the people that I've hurt. I love God. Thank God. And he explained why too. He said, I just got a FaceTime call from my kids. And now life is great again. And I'm back on top. And this is wonderful. And it was this huge shift. And then I think no coincidence, shortly thereafter, he releases this version of the Heil Hitler song. So I became I'm the villain. We bleep that word now too. So we're bleeping too much. We're bleeping too much around here, folks. But he's saying, you know, I became a villain. And then there's this turn. He goes, ninja, say ninja, you know what word I'm talking about. Ninja, hallelujah. They don't understand the things I say on Twitter. All my ninjas godly. No longer all my ninjas Nazi. All my ninjas godly. Ninja, hallelujah. So even this, though, because Kanye is an interesting artist. There are two reads on it. Either it's Kanye creating an equivalency between God and Hitler, right? It's either Kanye saying that to say Heil Hitler is the same thing as saying hallelujah, which is to call Hitler God. I guess that's one read you could have of it. I don't think that's really supported by the narrative that Kanye has given on this, which is, I'm a villain, my life's terrible, everything's bad. Then on Twitter, which is part of the performance of this song, for goodness sakes, he references Twitter in the chorus repeatedly. Twitter's obviously in this performance he's giving. And he says, oh yeah, I've given it up. It's over. The narrative in that song, I'm changing it. Then he literally changes the song. And he answers the question that I observed was implicit in the song in my commentary on it, which is, okay, what do we do now? How can I become a good guy again? Are we going to keep going down into being a villain and being a Nazi and being Hitler? Or are we going to worship God? Or are we going to become the good guys again? And Kanye does it. Kanye actually does it. He does it so clearly that he re-released the song as Hallelujah. I absolutely love saying I told you so. And on this one, this is one of the faster vindications I've ever had on it. Some people doubt that I get pop music and rap music. You should not. You should. I am the most vindicated rap critic in the world. All right, final chance, last day. Listen up. If you're not already a DW Plus member, you need to fix that right now. Today only, new annual memberships, 40% off, code DW40. That gets you all of our daily shows, unfiltered and ad-free, our entertainment library, including our blockbuster documentaries, such as What is a Woman?, the top doc of the decade, Am I Racist? If you're not a member, you get none of it. Go to dailywire.com, use code DW40, save 40%. This is the last day. Do not miss it. My favorite comment on, wow, when was it? When was the last show? Friday, Thursday? It's from the Drummer's Workshop. Norm's Music says, I guess Harry Potter is performing black magic. You get it? Because Harry Potter recast at least one actor and maybe multiple actors as black. And black magic. Do you get it? Do you get it? Okay, so I was just in Hungary, as you know. I flew over to Budapest for CPAC Hungary. It was a wonderful time. We'll put my speech somewhere. I'm sure you can find it somewhere. It's kind of funny to give a speech to a Hungarian audience because they have translator earphones on. So you make a point, you make a joke, or you make a point in your speech, and then there's actually a delay between the time you make it and when they react to it. So it's kind of an interesting crowd to do it when you're speaking in translation. Especially to Hungarians. A lot of Hungarians speak English, but Hungarian is basically the most difficult language to learn in the entire world. When I landed in Budapest, pretty much the first thing I did was go to meet the prime minister. So you'll see some familiar faces in this little hangout, but I'm sitting there with, I don't know, it's probably about half a dozen of us or so, sitting down with Prime Minister Orban. And I won't play the whole interview here. This went on for a very, very long time. Two questions in particular, though, I asked him, because I knew everyone was going to ask him about this policy and that policy and the European elections and why this party in Spain didn't do as well and why whatever, all this kind of daily politics. I wanted to get deeper because Orban strikes me as a deep thinker. And so I asked him about two things. I asked him about freedom. I asked him about how his political views have changed. And I asked him about the symbol of the Hungarian nation. Because when Orban was in power 25 years ago, for the first time, before he was thrown out of power, and then he came back to power, he did something very interesting. He moved the crown of St. Stephen into the Parliament building. I asked him, I said, what does that mean? And what can we American conservatives learn about that kind of an action? Here's his answer. This goes back a little ways, not just the policies of the last few years, but roughly 25 years or so. When you were prime minister the first time, you moved the crown of St. Stephen from a museum to the center of Parliament. I'm not Hungarian, but looking at that seems like a beautiful movement that seems to have great meaning for the political order. But I don't want to put words in your mouth. What's the significance of that move?
that's the most complicated element of the Hungarian, being Hungarian, you know. So first of all, the crown belongs to Christianity. And the relationship between the nation and Christianity here in Hungary is very unique. It is even written into the constitution that the Christianity has a role to preserve the nation. And if you look at the history of 1,100 years of Hungary, there were some periods when we survived as a nation just because of the Christianity. And the crown is a symbol of coming together the nation and Christianity, you know, because it's a Christian country, which is symbolized by the crown. So that's first. Second, you know, nation is a notion when you discuss and read about it in the Western philosophy and literature, looks like that something would belong to the modern age, 19th century or something, the modern nations. Yeah. But it's not the case with the Hungarians. The nation as a notion, as a concept, is back to more than 1,000 years old for a very simple reason. Because, you know, this territory was occupied by the Hungarians by a move. So we came here to this territory 1,100 years ago as a deliberate move. We decided that from Asia we move here, we come here, and we take that territory. We took it over. And the Hungarians arrived, which means that these Hungarian guys have spoken or had spoken Hungarian language, surrounded by alien communities, no any relatives, neither culturally, neither linguistically, no DNA, you know. So we are totally alien here. So therefore, to be a Hungarian and to belong to the community, which is the nation, you know, is a concept of more than 1,000 years old here because of the special history. So and the Saint Stephen crown is a kind of testimony of that. So therefore, for Hungarians, we have the saying, still we have the crown, we have the country. It sounds stupid, you know, because crown is just a piece of something, you know, and the country is something else. But in the mind of the Hungarians, still we have the crown, we have the country. So therefore, the crown is so much deeply embedded in the heart and spirit of the Hungarians that it's difficult to imagine for somebody who is not belonging to our community.
No, I don't know that it's that difficult. It seems much more solid than a lot of the modern ideologies that political orders are based on these days.
So it was a big move, and you know, it was at the same time an anti-communist move, because after the Second World War, when the last Hungarian government escaped from Hungary to the West, because the Russians came in, the Soviet Union came in, the communists came in, they delivered with themselves the crown. So the crown was outside the country. Wow. It was in Fort Knox, basically, in United States, you know? And then in the 70s, the United States decided that if the Hungarian communist government asking for that, they can give it back. And there was some legitimacy crisis of the communist leadership here, and they used that gestures to give some profile for them. So then the government of the administration of United States have given it back.
Jimmy Carter.
But
just blame Jimmy Carter.
It's got to be Carter. It's got to be Carter.
But
gave everything back.
But the communists said, okay, we need that move and gesture, but it's dangerous. Put it into a museum, in a dark corner, you know?
Right.
So to let it out of the museum was a kind of reburn process of the crown and the conservative Christian past of Hungary. So it was a lot of discussion here, ideological one, but finally we decided to do so. It's strange a little bit because the crown is in the parliament, but the crown expressed the essence of the sovereignty of Hungary, and the sovereignty now is in the hand of parliament in the modern age. That's why we think it's possible to store there or to keep there. Everybody can see it. It's wonderful. It's really a unique piece of art.
It's important to pay attention to this, this observation of the prime minister here, because while Hungary is a small state, it's relatively less influential on the world stage than the United States. It's been around a long time. It's been around a long time, and it's maintained its identity. And unlike Europe and unlike the United States, it has stopped invasions for a very long time, including modern mass migration. And it has really led the way. And you see what he says here. He says, well, the crown's important because it goes back 1,000 years. The crown of St. Stephen, it's a sturdier foundation for a country than civil laws. It's a sturdier foundation than, I don't know, certain rituals. it's a sturdier foundation than the Constitution. And we in the United States have to remember that because we love our Constitution. Don't we love our Constitution, folks? But the country is deeper than the Constitution. It's older than the Constitution. Its foundation is stronger than the Constitution. As Orban says here, the crown of Saint Stephen, an actual saint with a cross on it, reminds us that Christianity has an important role in preserving nationhood. That's in the Hungarian Constitution. And that this crown is the symbol of that power. And so the crown can move. And it can move even to have a paradox where the crown is in the people's house. The symbol of the monarchy, or a symbol of the monarchy, is in the house of the people, in the parliament. And that shows you where the authority of the government lies. Very important. We're not just a country that came out of thin air or out of Enlightenment ideas in the 18th century. If we're going to preserve our country and our civilization, it's going to have to be founded on something deeper. Ultimately, it's going to have to be grounded in God. I then asked one more question, that's very important also for the American understanding. I said, how have your political views changed? You were in office in the late 90s. Then you were out of office. Then you came back into office in 2010 or so, and you've been in office for about 15 years. Have your views changed over time? A cheap politician would say, my views haven't changed at all. What Orban says here is really interesting because he admits that his views have changed, but listen to how he says they've changed.
Has your thinking on this changed? Because you've had a very long political career. We were talking about the kids earlier at the universities who maybe they start out libertarian, they become more traditionalist or something like that. Has your thinking on these questions changed much over 30 years?
Definitely yes. Definitely yes. First of all, when I was young, in the 80s, it was obvious that liberals fight for freedom.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And freedom is the most important issue, yeah? So I'm a freedom fighter, street fighter, whatever, so freedom. And it took 2 decades to understand that now, slowly but surely, the liberals became the enemy of the freedom. Mm-hmm. So something bad in the concept, so we have to rethink everything. So then I have got some help from the God as well to understand that this is bad and this is good, and I reshape my ideas and reshape my program and so on. But the core is unchanged. The core is freedom. I desperately believe that freedom is the best thing. And the God has given the freedom for us to make good things. So let's be so simple. That's all. That's all. And if you continue, if you follow that track, you will win.
So the freedom stays solid, but there's a changing conception of freedom.
Yeah.
There is a
Because sorry, I came from a dictatorship. Freedom means to be free from something, from the communist, from Soviet Union, you know, to be free from something. But I realized that after several years, it's not enough, because freedom is for something. So it's not enough to say that freedom is against something. Freedom, it must be for something, you know? You have to do something. Yeah. And then it's easy to understand that in the human beings' lives, if you would like to have a real valuable life, you have to admit that there are things which are more important than yourself. This is the key point. This is a turning point. That was my turning point. There are things which are more important than my own personal life. This is the family, the God, and the nation. And the best way of life to serve the things which are more important than you are. Be humble and serve the more important things.
This is why you moved.
When you understand that, you become conservative.
Yeah.
that's so simple.
Brilliant answer here from Prime Minister Orban. Shows you this is a serious political person. This is a deep thinker. He says, well, my views have changed. Certainly my approach to politics, my views have changed over the decades. But it's always been about freedom. Well, the only way those two statements can be true is if his understanding of freedom has changed, which he acknowledges there after the follow-up. He says, well, yes, of course. I used to think freedom was just freedom from the Soviet Union, freedom from what? Coercion, freedom, the same kind of freedom, quote unquote, that the guys like Glenn Greenwald are talking about at the top of the show. In that statement, he says, I'm just consenting adults. All that matters is consent. But Orban says, it took me a couple decades, but I realized freedom has to be for something. It has to be grounded on real things, faith, family, the nation. It has to be for, it's not just about stopping attacks. It's not just about stopping coercion. It's about building something. It has a purpose. It has a telos. Freedom without a substantive content means nothing at all. Which way are we going to go? It took Prime Minister Orban a couple decades in politics to understand that fact, and he's understood it beautifully, and he's done a very good job in Hungary as a result of it. Are we American conservatives going to remember that? Are we going to stand up for the freedom of consenting adults to degrade themselves on video and then pretend they're not embarrassed or ashamed of it? Or are we going to stand up for real freedom, which is the freedom to do the things we ought to do, and the freedom, the higher exalted freedom, to have a good country, to have flourishing families, to have a civilization? Which freedom are we going to have? Which way, Western man? Today's Music Monday. The rest of the show continues now. You do not want to miss it. Become a member. Use code Knowles, KNWLES at checkout for 2 months free on all annual plans.